Let me begin with you, Mark, on this, because I guess you got to have hope at the end of the day if you're a defendant. And looking at one possible juror, knowing that it only takes one to try to acquit or maybe have a mistrial and beyond to influence others. But why is the Trump team so hopeful about the possibility of this one juror?
Well, I think it's not just the body language of the juror. When the jury would walk in, they would file past the defendant's table, past Donald Trump. And all the other jurors would basically look at their feet or look away and not make eye contact. This guy would. And when the various congressional surrogates for Trump would come into the courtroom, this juror's face would, quote, light up, especially when he saw Ohio Senator J.D. Vance. So he seems to be, at least in the estimation of the Trump crew, plugged into who these various political figures are, and he appears to admire or like them. Now, again, he could just be being nice or showing good manners or who knows what. But I think this also speaks to a certain level of almost desperation or worry, I should say, in the Trump campaign and in Trump's orbit, that the best he could hope for is a hung jury. They're really bracing for a conviction. Who knows what happens then? But to the degree standing trial is sort of the stages of grief, looking at this one juror who makes sort of smiley eyes and thinking, well, maybe he's going to hang the whole jury and mistry this, is sort of the bargaining stage of grief for the Trump operation at the moment.
Richard, I mean, I happen to be an expert in smizing. That seems to be my forte, Richard. But I want to know from your perspective on these things, you know, what happens right now as the Monday morning quarterbacking and the woulda, coulda, shoulda, and should we have done this, and did we do enough? That's all happening while the jurors are deliberating. And I'm wondering, do you think they're reading too much into this juror's behavior or mannerisms, or could there really be something there?
Well, a little bit of both. So yes, I think we're reading way too much into it. But the truth is that this is why jury selection is so important because, and you know this as a prosecutor, as a former prosecutor, you are looking for a consensus. You have to have a unanimous verdict. So looking for those outliers, looking for those one person who's going to somehow throw a wrench into the works and is going to fold their arms and say, I'm not going to convict, that becomes important. So the personality dynamic that you're looking for in jury selection is important. Are these jurors going to get along? Are they going to work together? Whether they're smiling, whether they're a little more, excuse me, favorable toward one side or the other, that may come and go. You never know. A lot of jurors tend to try to be stoic in these cases because they know they're being watched.
Richard, do you put a lot of stock in the amount of time that a jury is out to determine how they might rule?
Yes and no. I mean, the truth is a quick verdict typically favors an acquittal. But the truth is, on a case like this, I don't put a lot of stock in it because it is a complicated case. It is unique legal theory. There are 34 counts, and there's a lot of evidence. There's 5 weeks of evidence with 20 witnesses. That's a lot to go through, and you have very, very smart jurors who are going to take their time, I think, with this. So that's why I'm not putting a lot of stock in the timing, because I just think this jury wants to make sure they get it right.
Well, Mark, I mean, I want you to listen to what Trump said after court. Many are calling this spin. Listen.
Mother Teresa could not beat these charges. These charges are rigged. The whole thing is rigged. Nobody knows what the crime is because there's no crime. Nobody knows what the crime is. The DA didn't name the crime.
I mean, lawyers know to manage expectations, but that's quite the managing of expectations to suggest that Mother Teresa can't beat these charges, which means if he beats the charges, is he better than Mother Teresa? I mean, there's a whole lot going on there. What's the political message that you think he's trying to convey? Is he hedging? And what will it be if he is acquitted?
I think Donald Trump is actually expressing how he actually feels, which is that he's probably going to lose this one. And he's also looking at the future. He has to message and say this was rigged, this was a political show trial, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, in the hopes that the nation or a majority of voters buy that or believe him. One of the things that surprised the Trump campaign so far, and a lot of his advisors, is that they've gone through this entire trial. It's been in the news quite a bit, and yet Trump's ballot share is still higher than Joe Biden's. That is, Donald Trump is still winning by an inside the error margin amount in various polls. So far, from the Trump's campaign's perspective, so good. But no one knows what happens when you actually have a guy convicted of a felony. And so he's going to start messaging on that to try to lessen that impact in case he does get convicted. And again, my reporting strongly suggests he believes he's going to get convicted, and the best he can hope for is a hung jury and a mistrial.